Hello guys, my name is Gavin, and this will be a tutorial on how to create fixed camera angles, and the active camera in the scene will change depending on which camera is closest to the player. I kind of thought that since the new Resident Evil game is coming out, or the remake of it is, that'd be kind of cool to do a tutorial on how they made that. So I'm just going to get started. So to start off, just hit A to select everything and hit X to delete, and let's do spacebar and then add a plane right here. Alright. I'm going to hit S and 10 to scale it up 10 times. And then what we're going to do is use spacebar and then add a cube. And this cube, we're going to make it kind of replicate a little player where it moves around and stuff like that. Because you want to see the cameras actually tracking around, so it'll be kind of interesting. With our cube selected, let's rename this to player and go from defaults to game logic and go from Blender render to Blender game. Alright, down here in our player, let's add 4 keyboard sensors. This first one will be called W key, and let's put W in here. Add another keyboard sensor. This will be called S key. Now put the S in here. Let's add another keyboard sensor. Oops. This will be called A key. Like this. I'll put A in there. And let's do keyboard right here. Let's do D key. Let's put D in here. Alright, let's then add 4 motion actuators. This first one, we'll call it forward, like this. And we'll put 0.2 on the y-axis. Let's then add a motion actuator backward. Let's put negative 0.2. 0.2 on the y-axis, or negative 0.2, sorry, on the y-axis. Let's do add actuator and motion. Let's name this as left, and we want the player to rotate to the left, or actually, let's have it move to the left, so let's have negative 0.2, like this. And let's have add actuator motion right, and let's have 0.2 right here on the x-axis. Alright, let's connect these now, like this. So drag them across like this, and once you got that, I'm just going to minimize these. Let's add a color to our cube in the middle. So click on this materials tab, hit new. Let's change it to blue. So we should see if we hit play, our cube can move around like this. Alright, we now have enough information to actually make it work for the camera. Actually, I'm just going to click on the physics tab and change it from static to character and click actor. So our cube should fall and he can move around like this. Alright, we now have enough information to actually rotate our camera around and stuff. So what we're going to do is hit 1 to go into front view and do spacebar and then add a camera like this. I'm going to drag this camera back. And on our camera right here, I'm going to rename it to 1. So rename it to 1. And we want this camera to constantly track the player's movement around the map. So what we're going to do is add an always sensor. And click those first 3 dots. And let's add an edit object actuator and do track to. And let's put player in here and connect these. Now I have to do a couple of things on our tracking axis. For the up axis, let's put Y, and for the track axis, let's put negative Z. And these may seem a little bit weird, but this is how it'll track to the cube fine. I've kind of been tinkering around with this, and in the earlier versions of Blender, it was pretty much straightforward, but for some reason, it's gotten a little wonky. Hit the 3D, and we should see if I hit play now, our cube is in the middle, and you can see it's tracking to our player like this. And the camera angle is stationary. The camera is not moving around, except it's looking at the player constantly. And I'm actually going to move this camera back and up just a little bit. Right-click and scale this up a little bit. Okay, so we should see it looks like that. Alright, I'm actually just going to add a quick material to our plane. So with our plane selected, just the materials tab, new, and I'll change this to green. Yeah, that looks better. Alright, what we're going to do now is right click on this camera, hit Shift and D to copy it, and hit RZ180. And drag this all the way over here. So, if we hit 0 now, there should be both cameras looking at our player. And on the second camera, Let's right click on it, the one you just created, and let's change it to 2, like this. You see they both got those same properties, attract to, actuator, etc. So we now want it to actually pretty much switch cameras depending on which one is closer. So what we're going to do is on this always sensor, on this camera 1, let's add a Python controller like this. And let's do templates, Python, and then game logic simple. Hold on, let me drag this out. Delete the portion that I've highlighted. And hit Control and scroll up on your mouse to make your text larger. I'm just going to rename this to camerascript.py. So camerascript. Sorry, I had a pen in the way. And since we want to actually edit both cameras, let's do scene is going to equal bg.logic.gets current scene. Like this. And inside of this, let's define our 1 and 2 camera objects. So 1 is going to equal scene.objects 1, and 2 is going to equal scene.objects 2. Let's then get the distance from the camera to the player. Actually, let's actually get the player in the script first. So player is going to equal scene.objects player. Alright, once you got that, let's do distance 1 is going to equal 1.gets distance 2 and then player. And distance 2 is going to equal 2.gets distance 2 and then player. So what this is saying is that distance 1 is going to be the distance from camera 1 to our player, and the same for distance 2. Now what we want to have it do is have if distance 1 is less than distance 2. We want the scene.active underscore camera is going to equal 1. And if it's else, or if camera 2 is closer, we're gonna have scene.active camera is going to equal 2. So we should see that if I hit let me drag this in really quick. If I hit P to play, the camera will track, but if I move towards this side, actually it's kind of hard to tell. Let's drag one of these cameras to opposite sides, or at kind of like different depths or angles to make it easier to see. So if we hit play now, we can see the camera's right here. If we move away, see it switches. So now camera 1 is activated, or the other camera will be activated. And you can see it's switching cameras because based on where we move, the cameras switch. I'm going to add actually an object to make it easier to see. I'm going to do spacebar and then add a cylinder. So with the cylinder in the game, I'm going to hit S, Z, and 10, like this. I'll actually copy it a couple of times. So hit 0 to go into our camera view. We should see there are now these cylinders in the game. Yeah, and the cylinders switch sides when you get closer to the other camera. Alright, so that's how you create fixed camera angles. There's obviously a lot of ways to do this, but this is one way I could see of making it. Alright guys, hope you guys found this useful.